Let me be blunt with you. Sometimes what you call helping is actually hurting. You tell yourself you're supporting someone you love, but the truth is you might just be propping up their excuses, shielding them from consequences and keeping them stuck right where they are. And let's face it, you're stuck right there with them. Here's the reality: if you're constantly rescuing, fixing, or sacrificing yourself for someone else's mess, you are not helping. You are enabling. Helping empowers people to grow. Enabling strips them of accountability. Think about it. If you're the one paying their bills, making their calls, smoothing over their conflicts, or giving endless second chances, you've stepped out of the role of support and into the role of a crutch. And guess what? Crutches are only supposed to be temporary. If you keep being their permanent crutch, they never learn to walk on their own. You're not doing them a favor. You're robbing them of the opportunity to stand on their own 2 feet. When you strip this idea down to its core, the difference between helping and enabling comes down to power, who has it, who's using it, and what it's producing. Helping is about empowering someone. It's about giving them the tools, encouragement, and short-term support they need so that they can step into their own strength and handle life's challenges. Enabling, on the other hand, is about disempowering. It's about stepping in where you don't belong, taking over responsibilities that aren't yours, and creating a cycle where the other person becomes weaker, more dependent, and less accountable over time. And while it often comes wrapped in good intentions, enabling is destructive, both to the person you're trying to help and to yourself. Think about it like this: when you help a child learn to ride a bike, you might hold the back of the seat at first, giving them stability while they find their balance, but at some point you have to let go. If you never release your grip, that child never learns balance, never falls, never gets back up, never gains confidence. They stay stuck, unable to ride on their own. That's the difference. Helping starts with support and ends with independence. Enabling starts with control and ends with dependence. Now, many people confuse the two because both come from a place of care. You step in to cover your partner's mistakes, bail your sibling out financially, make excuses for a friend's reckless choices, or smooth over conflicts for your child because you don't want to see them hurt or fail. On the surface, it feels like compassion. But scratch a little deeper and you realize you're not preventing pain, you're postponing it. You're making yourself the buffer between them and reality, which means they never learn to face consequences. You're not actually helping them solve their problem. You're simply transferring the weight onto your own shoulders. And the longer you do it, the weaker they get and the heavier your load becomes. Helping is empowering because it communicates belief. I know you can handle this. I'll support you as you figure it out, but the responsibility is yours. That kind of help builds strength, resilience, and ownership. It challenges people to rise to the occasion. It says, I trust you to be capable. Enabling, on the other hand, communicates doubt. You can't handle this, so I have to take over. That message robs people of dignity and growth. Even if you don't say it out loud, your actions scream, I don't believe you're capable. And over time, they start to believe it too. That's how dependency is born. Not because people are incapable, but because someone keeps stepping in to save them. The hard truth is, enabling isn't really about the other person, it's about you. It's about your discomfort with seeing them struggle, your need to be needed, your desire to control the outcome, or your fear of conflict. Helping says, this is about you and I want to see you grow. Enabling says, this is about me and I can't handle the discomfort of letting you fail. That's why enabling disables. It doesn't just block the other person's growth, it also locks you into a cycle of over-responsibility, exhaustion, and resentment. You become addicted to fixing while they become addicted to being fixed. Nobody wins. Now, let's talk about consequences, because this is where the rubber meets the road. When you truly help someone, you give them space to experience the natural consequences of their choices. If they spend recklessly, they deal with the overdraft fee. If they don't prepare, they live with the poor grade or the missed opportunity. If they break trust, they face the loss of credibility. Consequences are teachers, sometimes harsh ones, but always effective. But when you enable, you shield them from those lessons. You pay the fee, you make the call, you smooth over the mess, you shield them from accountability, and the consequence that was supposed to teach them never gets delivered. Instead, you're the one carrying the fallout, and they walk away unscathed, unchallenged, unchanged. It may feel noble in the moment, but enabling is not kindness. It's interference. It's stealing someone else's opportunity to learn, adapt, and grow. It's like cutting open a cocoon to help a butterfly out, only to watch it fall to the ground because its wings never develop the strength to fly. Your so-called help actually cripples them. Helping, in contrast, knows when to step back. It knows the struggle is part of the process, and it trusts that the person is capable of building strength through that struggle. So here's the straight truth: helping empowers because it equips and encourages. Enabling disables because it controls and coddles. The test is simple. Ask yourself, does what I'm doing make this person stronger and more capable, or weaker and more dependent? If the answer is stronger, you're helping. If the answer is weaker, you're enabling. And every time you enable, you're not just keeping them from growth, you're also keeping yourself from peace. You become the unpaid manager of someone else's life, and that's a job you'll never win. The bottom line is this: real love doesn't shield people from consequences, it lets them face reality. Real help doesn't take over responsibility, it hands it back. If you want the people you care about to stand on their own 2 feet, you have to stop being the crutch that keeps them crawling. Helping empowers, enabling disables. The difference isn't just a word, it's the difference between someone building a life they can be proud of or staying stuck in one they depend on you to manage. One of the hardest lessons you'll ever have to swallow in relationships is that people don't change when you cushion them from reality. They change when reality smacks them in the face and forces them to deal with the results of their own choices. If you're constantly stepping in to shield someone from the fallout of their behavior, you're not loving them, you're interfering with their growth. You're standing in between them and the very experience that could wake them up. And let me tell you, nothing sabotages a person's chance at real transformation faster than someone who blocks them from facing consequences. Here's the truth: life has a built-in feedback system. Every decision we make carries a consequence, good or bad. Spend recklessly and the bills pile up, skip responsibilities and opportunities dry up, break trust and relationships fracture. That's how people learn, through trial, error, and adjustment. But when you swoop in to save someone from those natural results, you interrupt the process, you take the consequence that belongs to them and put it on your own shoulders. Suddenly, they're free to keep repeating the same choices, because why wouldn't they? The cost never reaches them, it lands on you. And the more you protect them, the less incentive they have to take ownership. I want you to really think about this. Imagine someone you love keeps showing up late to work, oversleeping, not taking it seriously. If you call their boss and make excuses, or you wake them up every morning like they're a child, what's the message? The message is, you don't have to worry. Someone else will shield you. And as long as you're doing that, they'll never wake up to the reality that if they can't get their act together, they're going to lose that job. But let them face a warning, let them get written up, let them lose the paycheck. That sting, that discomfort is where accountability is born. It's the pain of consequence that drives people to change their behavior. Without it, nothing changes. Now, many people who protect others from consequences will swear they're just trying to help. They say things like, I don't want them to suffer, or, well, if I don't step in, they'll fail. But let's call it what it is. It's not kindness, it's control. It's saying, I can't stand to see you fall, so I'll make sure you never hit the ground. But here's the problem: if they never fall, they never learn to get up. You're robbing them of resilience. You're robbing them of grit. You're robbing them of the very life lessons that would shape them into a stronger, wiser human being. And over time, they learn that someone else will always catch them. That belief creates entitlement, irresponsibility, and dependency. There's also a selfish angle to it, and you need to face that. Sometimes you protect people from consequences not because it's what's best for them, but because it keeps you comfortable. It prevents the fight, the tears, the rejection, or the guilt you'd feel if you step back. You don't want to sit with the discomfort of their anger or pain, so you swoop in and play savior. But let's be honest, that's about you, not them. Real love doesn't cave to guilt. Real love says, I care enough to let you face the results of your actions, even if it hurts me to watch. Here's the irony. By protecting people from consequences, you actually prolong their suffering. You think you're sparing them pain, but all you're really doing is delaying it and making it worse down the line. The kid who never hears no grows into an adult who can't take rejection. The partner who always gets bailed out financially never learns fiscal responsibility and ends up drowning in debt. The friend who always has someone cleaning up their messes never develops the maturity to manage life independently. Shielding them today sets them up for devastation tomorrow. On the flip side, allowing people to face consequences is one of the most powerful gifts you can give, because that's how growth happens. When someone feels the sting of failure, they're confronted with a choice to stay the same or change. When they lose a job, they learn responsibility. When they blow the budget, they learn discipline. When they betray trust and end up alone, they learn the value of honesty and respect. Those lessons don't come from lectures, nagging, or rescuing. They come from the school of reality. And reality doesn't hand out participation trophies. It hands out hard-earned wisdom. So ask yourself, where in your life are you shielding someone from the results of their own choices? Where are you stepping in to take the hit that doesn't belong to you? Maybe it's a grown child who's still depending on you to fund their lifestyle. Maybe it's a spouse who won't take accountability for their behavior, so you smooth things over. Maybe it's a friend who keeps making the same bad choices and you keep bailing them out. Wherever it is, recognize this: the more you protect, the less they grow. And the less they grow, the more you'll resent them. It's a vicious cycle. Breaking it means making a decision. You have to decide that you will no longer shield people from reality. You'll let the bank call them. You'll let the teacher give them the failing grade. You'll let the employer deal with their tardiness. You'll let the relationship cracks show instead of covering them up. Because until they feel the discomfort of consequence, they will not change. And if you keep protecting them, you're not saving them, you're sacrificing them. The bottom line is this: consequences are life's greatest teacher. They don't need you to soften them, dodge them, or absorb them. They need you to step back and let them land, because the second you stop protecting people from consequences is the moment you finally give them the chance to grow into who they're supposed to be. If you want to know how much you respect yourself, don't look at what you say, look at the boundaries you set and enforce. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are lines that define what you will and will not accept in your life. They're not punishments, they're protections. And when you fail to set boundaries, what you're really saying is, I don't value myself enough to protect my time, my energy, and my peace. Boundaries are the practical expression of self-respect. Without them, you invite chaos, disrespect, and resentment into your life. Too often, people think boundaries are about controlling someone else. They're not. You can't control what other people do, but you can control what you allow. If someone consistently talks down to you, takes advantage of you, or dumps their responsibilities on you, the boundary isn't about changing their behavior. It's about deciding what you're going to do if it happens again. Self-respect means you stop begging people to treat you better and start requiring it by the way you respond. Boundaries aren't words, they're actions. Saying "don't disrespect me" is talk. Walking away, cutting off access, or refusing to engage when disrespect shows up, that's a boundary. Here's the thing most people don't want to admit: when you have weak boundaries, you're teaching people how to treat you. If you tolerate lateness, they'll keep showing up late. If you tolerate broken promises, they'll keep breaking them. If you tolerate manipulation, they'll keep manipulating. Every time you let it slide, you reinforce the message that your standards don't matter. And once people learn that lesson, they will use it. So if you want respect from others, start by respecting yourself enough to enforce limits. Boundaries are also about energy. You only have so much emotional bandwidth in a day. If you're constantly saying yes when you want to say no, constantly fixing other people's problems, constantly letting drama spill into your space, you're depleting yourself. And when you deplete yourself, you don't just harm you, you harm everyone who depends on you to show up healthy, stable, and present. Self-respect means recognizing that your energy is a limited resource and you don't hand it out to anyone who demands it. You invest it in the people and situations that align with your values and goals. One of the reasons people struggle so much with boundaries is guilt. They think if they say no, they're selfish. If they walk away, they're mean. If they stop enabling, they're abandoning someone. But let's get real here. Saying no to being disrespected is not selfish. Refusing to carry someone else's burden isn't mean. Drawing a line doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself too. There's a big difference between being compassionate and being a doormat. Compassion says, I'll support you, but I won't destroy myself in the process. A doormat says, walk all over me and I'll keep lying here. Which one sounds like self-respect to you? Boundaries are also not one and done. You don't set them once and then coast. People will test them. They'll push, they'll argue, they'll guilt trip. And this is where your self-respect really shows up, not in what you declare, but in what you enforce. If you set a boundary and then cave the first time someone pushes back, you've taught them your boundaries aren't real. Boundaries only mean something when they're backed up with consistent action. Respecting yourself means standing firm even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs you approval, even when it means losing someone who refuses to honor your line. Here's another truth boundaries reveal: who really values you and who only values what you give them. When you start setting limits, the wrong people will get angry, offended, or try to guilt you back into compliance. That's not love, that's control. The right people will adjust, even if it takes them a moment, because they value you enough to honor your needs. Boundaries are filters. They separate the people who drain you from the people who respect you. And if you're too afraid to set them, you'll never know who truly belongs in your life. Self-respect through boundaries also sends a message to yourself. Every time you enforce a boundary, you reinforce your own worth. You tell yourself, I am valuable. My peace matters. My time matters. My needs matter. And when you start believing that, your whole life changes. You stop settling for relationships that take more than they give. You stop pouring into people who never pour back. You stop chasing approval and start expecting mutual respect. Boundaries are not just about keeping people in check. They're about keeping you aligned with who you truly are and what you truly deserve. Let me leave you with this. Self-respect isn't something you talk yourself in, it's something you prove through your actions. And the clearest way you prove it is through the boundaries you set and enforce. Boundaries are not selfish, they are self-care. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors with locks, and you decide who gets the key. Boundaries are not about control, they're about clarity. And every time you hold one, you're not just teaching others how to treat you, you're teaching yourself how to honor the life you want to live. Boundaries are self-respect in action, and until you start living by them, you will never experience the peace and freedom you're looking for. If you want to break free from codependency, you can't just set a boundary once, deliver a tough love speech once, or say no once and expect the whole dynamic to change. The truth is, change doesn't happen in a single act of courage. It happens in consistent action repeated over time. Codependency is a pattern, and patterns are only broken when you build a new one to replace them. That new pattern is consistency, because without it, you will slide right back into the old cycle of rescuing, enabling, and losing yourself in someone else's chaos. Think about it this way. If someone in your life has learned that you'll eventually cave, that you'll eventually give into guilt, that you'll eventually pick up the pieces no matter what, then one act of defiance isn't going to change their behavior. They're going to test you. They're going to wait you out. They're going to push every button they've ever pushed before. And if you hold your line today but fold tomorrow, all you've done is teach them that your boundaries are negotiable. In fact, inconsistency actually strengthens codependency because it gives the other person hope that if they push hard enough or long enough, you'll go back to the old role. The cure isn't saying no once. The cure is saying no every single time it needs to be said until the pattern breaks for good. Consistency is what builds credibility with yourself. You can talk all day about wanting to stop enabling, wanting to take back your peace, wanting to live with self-respect, but until you back it up with steady, reliable action, it's just talk. Every time you stay consistent, you're teaching yourself that you can be trusted to honor your own standards. That trust in yourself is what dissolves codependency, because codependency thrives on self-betrayal. It's you sacrificing your values, your time, your money, your health, just to keep someone else comfortable or happy. But when you decide, no, I am going to act in alignment with my boundaries every single time, you rebuild that inner trust. You prove to yourself that your word matters. Another piece of this is emotional consistency. Codependency often makes you reactive. You swing between anger, guilt, and exhaustion. One day you're furious and drawing hard lines. The next day you're flooded with guilt and pulling those lines back. That emotional whiplash keeps both you and the other person unstable. Consistency means learning to manage your emotions so you can respond the same way no matter what's thrown at you. If your rule is, I don't loan money anymore, then you hold that line calmly, whether they ask politely, whether they cry, or whether they scream. You don't change the boundary to match the emotional storm. You stay steady. That steadiness communicates strength, and strength is what ends the cycle. Here's what a lot of people don't want to admit. Inconsistency is usually about fear. You fear losing the relationship, so you backpedal. You fear being seen as mean, so you soften the line. You fear conflict, so you compromise. But every time you let fear drive you back in old patterns, you reinforce the codependency. The only way out is to act consistently in spite of fear. And here's the good news: consistency builds courage. The more you see yourself stand firm and survive it, the less power that fear has over you. Each time you hold the line, the fear loses its grip and the relationship dynamic shifts. Consistency is also important because change takes time. People don't stop expecting the old version of you overnight. If you've been rescuing someone for years, it may take weeks, months, or longer before they realize you're serious about the new way of relating. That's why one act of boundary setting isn't enough. They may accuse you of being selfish, cold, or abandoning them. They may push harder before they finally back off. And if you cave during that testing period, you undo the progress. But if you stay consistent, eventually the message sinks in. This person isn't going back to the old pattern. I either adjust or I lose the dynamic. That's when real change happens. Consistency doesn't mean rigidity. It doesn't mean you can't grow, adjust, or adapt as situations change. It means you don't contradict yourself. You don't say one thing today and the opposite tomorrow. You don't hold your boundary when it's convenient and drop it when it's uncomfortable. You stay aligned with your values no matter what. And when you do that long enough, codependency loses its grip because it can't thrive in an environment where you are solid, predictable, and self-respecting. Here's the bottom line: codependency is chaos, and the antidote to chaos is consistency. You don't heal it with one big declaration. You heal it with steady, small, repeated acts of integrity. You don't free yourself with one boundary. You free yourself by enforcing that boundary every time it's tested. You don't build self-respect with one tough decision. You build it by proving to yourself over and over that you will not abandon yourself again. Consistency is the cure because it retrains both you and the people around you. It teaches you that you are strong and reliable, and it teaches them that you mean what you say. And once that lesson sticks, the codependent dance is over.